I wanted to show you how I edit photos. So this is a photo that I had just taken of my desktop. I think this one I actually posted to my Instagram stories. And I think this was actually lit mostly from my monitor because it was on my desk. So I have a nice big monitor. But really, you can use any kind of lighting. So just try to make sure that your photos are as evenly lit as possible. So by that, I mean try to make sure there's not any harsh shadows, that the light is kind of distributed evenly. So I shoot with my iPhone. So what I'm going to do is show you just some basic editing with my iPhone settings. And then what I'll probably do is a couple of different videos using some different apps that I also enjoy using when I edit my photos. But for now, let's just use this. So you go into your edit, and the first thing that I always start with is right here under light. I like brilliance. So if you start bumping that up, what you'll notice is it kind of almost evens things out. It gives everything like a nice contrast and evens out the shadows a little bit and brightens those up. I try not to go too overboard with it. I don't want it to be, just kind of like your whites start to look crazy and everything looks a little weird. So try to use your whites as a guide. So I bump this up a bit, and then the next thing I do is go into my exposure. I want my whites to be nice and bright without losing detail. So if I go up too much, you'll start to see everything gets blown out. It's called where you lose all the detail. So you want to start, or you want to keep it so that your whites start to get nice and white without losing too much detail. And you'll notice that my whites aren't that white. They're almost, they're a little warm. So they're a little yellow, I guess. And we'll fix that in just a second here. The next thing I like is to play with my shadows. I like to bump those up a little bit, but not too much because again, it doesn't look realistic. You have to have some shadow in order to create enough contrast for your eye to actually be able to see the objects. So to fix the color, you go here under color and you'll see cast. And what that is it's like a warm and a cool filter. So if you go this way, it starts to warm it up more. But what I wanted to do was to cool this down a bit. So you see, here's what I had originally, and here's where we're at. So you can see, for me, the text over here is a little crazy on my notebook, but I do like the way the plant and the phone and the keyboard and everything else is looking. So I can play with my contrast a little bit and see if I like that. Sometimes I'll play with something and it just doesn't give me the changes that I like. The other thing here is highlights. Highlights are always great, but if you bring them down too much, you'll start to see that it just starts to look crazy. It doesn't look realistic. So in this case, I'd probably bump my highlights up just a little bit to make it a little bit softer. So again, you can see what I had originally and then where I'm at. And that's just a super quick, easy edit of this photo here. I'd also typically like to sharpen this a bit, but I would probably do that in one of my other apps, or if I'm uploading it to Instagram. I really like the Instagram edit options. There are some really great tools in there that if I'm not scheduling this, if I'm actually posting it myself, then I will use those as well. So I will probably do this tutorial with a couple of other apps that I really love, and I'll also show you a camera in an app that I really love. And it gives you a little more control over your exposure, so ideally you can shoot your image to look a little more like this to begin with, so then it's less editing. So I hope that was helpful.